So that is what we have on the front page of the Daily Nation. The Standard newspaper. The main headline: Uhuru's delicate balance. President lifts curfew to aid economic recovery and announces a raft of measures to reduce impact of COVID-19 in a delicate balance between keeping Kenyans safe and a return to normalcy. And of course, yesterday was Mashujaa, and we will look at some of the things that President Uhuru Kenyatta said yesterday, and of course, some of the achievements that he highlighted that the government has achieved since coming to power. We know President Uhuru Kenyatta just have a couple of months before his second and final term expires, and so I think a lot of Kenyans yesterday were surprised because not so many times you get to know what the government is doing. So yesterday he was able to highlight, of course, what the government has achieved and some of the developmental initiatives that are still under process and others that the government seeks to do in the near future. Thank you so much. So that is what we have on the headlines this morning. And so I'd like to bring in my panelists this morning, Sharon Gitonga. Sharon, a very good morning to you.
Thank you very much, Miriam, and indeed a very good morning to you back at the headquarters and to all our viewers watching us at this hour from wherever that they're watching us from. It is a pleasure to be part of this show, and I am hoping that you had a fantastic Mashujaa Day. Good morning.
Good morning to you. I did have a fantastic Mashujaa Day. I was not present for the show yesterday, but nevertheless, I did have a good Mashujaa Day. So let's just get into it, and we start with the Star newspaper, I think. And before we get into the goodies that President Uhuru Kenyatta gave to Kenyans yesterday, let's just look at this other story on page 6 of the Star newspaper. DP Ruto was praising some of these things that the Jubilee government has done, and we know what he's been saying. For the last 4 years, he's been saying the Jubilee government has been able to achieve zero, but yesterday he had so much to say about what the government has achieved. So let's just get to it. The story is on page 6 of the Star newspaper. Deputy President William Ruto made an about turn over President Uhuru Kenyatta's performance in his second term and showered the head of state with praises during Mashujaa Day celebrations. Speaking at Wanguru Stadium in Kirinyaga County on Wednesday, Ruto said the country has seen what he termed unprecedented transformation in the last 9 years under the leadership of Uhuru. You have been a transformational leader in Kenya. You have set the standards for the leaders who will come after you, the deputy president said. Ruto recently said Uhuru has wasted 4 years of his second term because of his handshake with ODM leader Raila Odinga. He has argued that the government lost its way when it brought on board opposition leaders. So yesterday I was watching, of course, the event back at home, and when Deputy President William Ruto was talking, Sharon, I was like, what? This is such a bipolar situation, if I might call it, because he's been saying the government has done nothing, but yesterday it was, I don't know, what do you make of Deputy President's sentiments yesterday?
Thank you very much, Miriam. And also, I was also baffled by that statement. And it speaks so much about his character and the kind of person that he is. From where I sit, I try to look at him as a duplicit, someone who lives, having double standards. And again, that statement sounded very disingenuous and quite dishonest when he tried to praise him. Yet, a few days ago, he was in Mombasa County where he, publicly called him a tapeli, rather a con man. So I find him being very dishonest and being quite disingenuous, when he tried to praise him of what he has done. And you've seen in other events that he's been publicly trying to demonize him and disrespect him publicly. So from where I stand, I believe this should highly be called out, and it speaks volume about the kind of a person that he is, owing to the fact that he's been in the government for more than 9 years, and there's nothing that we can actually call out that he has actually been able to do. When I look at the state-of-art stadiums that he actually promised, where are the jobs, the million jobs that he had actually promised? Where are the laptops that he had actually promised to the kids that I think right now they're actually going to high school. So for me, this is a very it's a very rogue statement, and it's actually should be called out. But I think he was just trying to play a level field, considering that he was, to avoid backlash, considering that he was at the president's, on his backyard. But it was so wrong, and it should highly be called out.
Okay, thank you. And we're also joined by Samuel Tawish. Tawish, a very good morning to you. Okay, so as we wait for Tawish there.
Sorry, Miriam, I'm here.
All right. So now we're looking at, before we get into what President Uhuru Kenyatta said and what happened yesterday, the DP Ruto seems to have made a U-turn when he stood up and he was expected to bring in President Uhuru Kenyatta, and he showered the president with a lot of praises. He said that he told President Uhuru Kenyatta, you have been a transformational leader in Kenya. You have set the standards for the leaders who will come after you. He cited the SGR, the construction of over 11,000 kilometers of tarmac, and the connection of 8 million Kenyans to electricity as some of the milestones achieved by the Jubilee administration. And he also continued to say that I want to assure you that together with my competitors, we will build on your legacy. We will not let any project remain incomplete. The same legacy he's been rubbishing, the same legacy he's been trying to sabotage. What did you make of DP Ruto's remarks yesterday?
Thank you so much, Miriam. Thank you to my colleague, panelist Sharon Gitonga, and all our viewers who are watching this program. Miriam, it was very unfortunate. I think it depicted Ruto's hypocritical nature. That just the other day, he was calling President Uhuru Kenyatta a tapeli. He was calling him a conman. He's been saying President Uhuru Kenyatta or his administration has not achieved as much, especially since the 2018 handshake between President Kenyatta and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. And so when Deputy President William Ruto came to speak yesterday in Kirinyaga Warungu Stadium and trying to shower praises to President Kenyatta as a person, and more so his administration, and saying that he has laid a very good foundation that is leaving behind a rich legacy, and this legacy will not only be secured, it will be, it is equally prominent. I think William Ruto was just trying to be hypocritical because what has changed all of a sudden, barely 72 hours, is calling President Uhuru Kenyatta a conman, a tapeli, was referring to him as a person who has not achieved, or a Jubilee administration has not achieved as much. So I think this is a person who just read the mood and has noticed that he cannot continually belittle and fight President Uhuru Kenyatta, and at the same time expect really to ride on his blessings or goodwill to ascend to power, or even the people who come from Mount Kenya, because they have insisted this severally, Miriam, that anyone who wants to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta and wants our support, that is support from Central Kenya, must first and foremostly demonstrate that, of course, respect and honor to the office and the person of President Uhuru Kenyatta. So I think he must have read the mood and decided to retreat. But I know that was just tactical, more so because of the event and having read the mood of Kirinyaga, and he could not, of course, talk bad about President Uhuru Kenyatta because he knew it was going to backfire on him. But I don't see any honesty or sincerity in as far as William Ruto's yesterday's remarks are concerned. I submit, Miriam.
Okay. Thank you. And of course, his remarks came barely a week after he accused the president of standing on his way as he plots to succeed him. He termed Uhuru and Raila matapeli, that is a con man. And on Monday, Uhuru took a swipe at his deputy during a rally in Sagana, Kirinyaga County. So anyway, we're done with that. We'll see how that will pan out there. And so the main headline, Uhuru's goodies to Kenyans on his last Mashujaa Day. Let's just look at some of the things that President Uhuru Kenyatta said yesterday. First of all, the curfew is over. Kenyans are very happy. Sharon Gitonga, I mean, we talked about this last week. For me, I felt it's about time we open up the country. So do you think that is the right thing right now?
Yeah, definitely. We had actually foreseen this coming, but I think he actually did the right thing, considering that the economy was already hurting. But now there's also the question to us that is at hand, that, he left the ball in our courts, that, to just read through the lines, that now health begins with us, and so is security. So we have a major and a vital role to play and ensure that we contain measures of COVID-19. So it's quite a delicate balance, and clearly, we are not out of the woods yet. So there's a part that we have to play. So I think for the transport industry and hospitality industry, and also SMEs at large, I think this is quite something to celebrate. But then there's also a mixed reaction, two mixed reactions that I don't know, maybe I can post to you and to the panel. I was checking out on social media, and I had one person, not even one person, so many people that say that, it's one thing for the president to say something, but it's another thing for the police to understand it differently. And I've just seen two notices that have been issued, contradicting issues that I would actually, if I can actually say, one from, Najib Balala, and one that was given by the Inspector General. So there's also that contradicting issues, especially when it comes to the operation of bars.
Could you please highlight that for us? I didn't see that. What did Najib Balala say?
Najib Balala said, the bars can actually continue to operate full time, but then the IG came in with a different statement, saying that bars have to be closed by 7 p.m. So that has also raised some eyebrows.
By 7 p.m. That was yesterday after President Kenyatta's speech.
Yes.
Okay.
And at the same time, I think actually Najib had said it earlier that bars can actually continue operating up until 7 p.m. Then no, not up until 7 p.m. I mean continuously, back to business as usual. But then a few hours later, the IG issued another statement, applying to the fact that the bars should actually be closed by 7 p.m. Yeah, and then also another thing that I actually came out quite strongly for me is there's also a tactic that has been going around, saying that this might have been a political tool or applied to increase the president's popularity, which I tend to highly disagree, considering that he's not contending for the president. So there's also been that aspect of people thinking that this would have happened way earlier, but actually happening yesterday, it was a political tool, which I strongly do not agree with.
Okay, thank you. Samuel Tawish, obviously very contradicting positions there. The president said the curfew has been henceforth been lifted, but he did not give specifics over the bars, if the tents will be closed and all. So people assumed everything is back to normal, but as Sharon has brought to our attention what the IG said and what the tourism minister Asiya said there yesterday. So obviously we need some clarity on which is which. But how do you feel about the curfew being lifted generally?
Thank you, Miriam. Thank you, Sharon. Indeed, Miriam, it was a good news. It's a welcome move that President Uhuru Kenyatta has finally decided really to open up the country, and of course vacating that dawn to dusk curfew. Is it dusk to dawn or dusk to dawn curfew? Miriam, most people have really been struggling. Businesses have been struggling. People who, of course, rely maybe on maybe during that time to do their businesses have also equally been struggling economically. So I think this was a very good news coming from President Kenyatta, and you could quite see even the kind of response that was yesterday in Warongo Stadium when the president made that pronouncement that is opening up the country. But of course, we also understand that opening up the curfew did quite imply that maybe bars were going just to operate from, say, without any regulations. Because there are these specifics that needed really clarification. But I will blame government largely on this, because the lapses, the disconnected lapses in terms of communication coming from the ministers who serve in the same government. One saying that maybe bars can operate then normally and as usual, and then another one comes and says they have to be restricted up to 7 p.m. I think that was contradicting in terms of their messaging, which is not very good in terms of the image of the government to the members of the public. So I think they will have to harmonize and see what is the exact position of government in as far as this is concerned. Because we understand President Kenyatta has opened up, really he has vacated the curfew. That did not imply that bars have just to operate without maybe without being checked or without a limit. Maybe they should have allowed it to operate up to about 10 p.m. or even 12 a.m. depending. You understand Kenyans, even President Kenyatta showered Kenyans yesterday. He said they have displayed, demonstrated resilience, commitment to help in the fight against this COVID-19 pandemic. And because of that commitment, because of that resilience, because of that discipline, it is what has seen us really try to achieve or succeed in as far as reducing the COVID-19 curve. But Miriam, I think what we need also to communicate to our people is that by virtue of the fact that President Kenyatta has vacated that curfew, doesn't mean it has gone. It is gone with the disease. The disease is still around with us. We need to continue washing our hands. We need to continue maintaining social distance. We need to continue wearing our mask. We need to continue sanitizing and observe all these Ministry of Health protocols. If at all we have to fight this disease and make sure that we have a zero curve in as far as the COVID-19 pandemic is concerned. So it is a responsibility equally which lies on the members of the public that in as much as the president has made this move, they should not forget and feel like now the disease has also gone with the curfew. The disease is still with us. Let's see how we can manage ourselves, continue with the same discipline so that we can be able to win the war against this COVID-19. I submit, Miriam.
Okay, thank you. And now we turn on the Daily Nation, covering the same yesterday's celebrations of Mashujaa Day in what is it called? Kirinyaga County. All right, so page 2 of the Daily Nation. President Uhuru Kenyatta unwrapped a basket of goodies for economically battered Kenyans in his last Mashujaa Day speech that was marked by conciliatory overtures and a catalogue of legacy projects that have defined his 2 terms as head of state. The highlights of the reliefs included immediate lifting of the COVID-19 night curfew, that has lasted for nearly 2 years, a multi-billion shilling economic stimulus package targeted at critical sectors of the economy, policy interventions for the youth, and an ease in the cost of fuel and electricity in the next 2 months. I'll just go quickly and look at, because the Daily Nation and also the other papers have done as a good job this morning. They have just broken down some of the things that President Uhuru Kenyatta talked about yesterday. So I'll just run them quickly, and then you'll let me know what stood out for you in yesterday's President Uhuru Kenyatta's speech. Number 1 is tea, 1 billion Kenya shillings in support of fertilizer subsidy for tea farmers. And number 2 is sugar, 1.5 billion Kenya shillings in aid of the sugar sector that will be appropriated towards factories maintenance and payment of farmers' arrears. The third one is coffee, 1 billion Kenya shillings for completion of ongoing interventions in coffee reforms, and livestock will be awarded 1.5 billion Kenya shillings for a livestock offtake in drought hit ASO counties. Number 5, also on livestock, reduction of the cost of animal and chicken feeds. And number 6, education, that will get 8 billion Kenya shillings to the Ministry of Education for the CBC infrastructure expansion program. Number 7, health, 3.2 billion Kenya shillings for immediate construction of 50 new level 3 medical facilities. Number 8, a national sanitation program, 10 billion Kenya shillings for the 3rd phase of the Kazi Mtaani program. Number 9 is energy and petroleum, Ministries of Petroleum and Mining, Treasury, to develop by December 24th a framework to stabilize of petroleum prices, and the Ministry of Energy shall secure the full implementation of the report of the Presidential Task Force on Review of Power Purchase Agreements that establishes a pathway for the reduction of electricity prices by 30% by December 24th. And number 10 is banking, Treasury, in consultation with stakeholders to raise the cash transactions reporting threshold from 1 million Kenya shillings applicable to deposits and withdrawals. Number 11, access to credit moratorium on listing on CRBs for SMEs with loans less than 5 million Kenya shillings. Borrowers with loans below 5 million Kenya shillings listed with SRBs from October last year to date will not have that listing incorporated in their credit reports for the next 12 months, ending September next year. And then number 12, digital financial services, Treasury to engage all digital payment providers with an aim of deepening and expanding use of digital payment systems. And number 13, vaccine production, Ministry of Health to manufacture vaccines in Kenya by Easter 2021. A lot of very practical and promises and things that really touch directly on the lives of Kenyans. So what has stood out for you there? I'll start with you, Sharon Gitonga.
Thank you very much, Mira. And indeed, when you look at all the things that actually have been spoken about, they are all, standing out in one way or another. But if I can point out on agriculture, which sounds to be quite an elephant in the room, and I love how he shifted gears and refocused on agriculture and gave, quite some, good preliminaries that, have been put in place, because you realize in one way or another, agriculture is in something that grease, if I can call it a grease that keeps wheels of different communities turning. And I'll not just look at central Kenya, which is also quite a huge boost to the farmers there, but I'll also look at Nyamira counties, and I think Kericho, when you talk about coffee and tea as well. So I think for once, Kenyans should trust the current government administration with the able president Uhuru Kenyatta. And I love the fact that he gave economical solutions to the economic problems that people have been facing. For me, I think agriculture really stood out, being a major component and a bedrock of the revival of an economy that has really been struggling for quite a long time. Yeah, and also when I also look at education, that is CBC. For me, it actually looked quite very fundamental. And if you can look close, that I think it has been given actually much more money than actually other sectors that have been given. And it's very good, because I think there's a saying that says if you invest in knowledge, it's actually what pays the best interest. So when I look at and where CBC is also concerned, remember it's barely a month ago when we were actually talking about the CBC, and I think one thing that on a downline that came very strongly, that it was quite expensive, and if the government could actually come in. So this shows that the president is actually a good listener, and he has listened to us, and it's just a matter of time, considering that this thing is actually new. It might take time for us to see results, but I mean in the long run we shall actually celebrate the results that are going to come out of it. So my urge to Kenyans would be let's just brace ourselves and embrace it, because CBC is here to stay and it's not going anywhere. Let's just embrace change. Change is inevitable. Change but in the long run, we are going to celebrate the fruit that are coming with it. Then I think he actually talked about local contractors in one of the speeches that actually for me was quite catchy. When you talk about employing local contractors, you realize that these will actually directly or indirectly offer jobs to people that are to our local learned and competent people that actually fit the bid. So I think that also stood out for me. And then on the issue of digitization, I think this is actually something to actually celebrate about, because you realize the moment we have parastatals, getting into the digital space, we are going to cut out, we are going to cut out corruption in one way or another, and also ensure, we have efficient service delivery to the people of this country at large. Then finally, if I talk about the vaccine, I think he said by next year Easter we should be having we should be able to produce vaccines. It's quite, for me it was quite a route, it's quite quite a shock, and I think it's high time, the Ministry of Health. I don't know if there are resources to put up that, considering the short time frame that has been given up, but it's quite a challenge to the Ministry of Health, because this is going to go a long way, especially when we have to rely on donors and to give us the fund, to give us the medicine. So I think that will actually go a long way, but it is a challenge to the Ministry of Health at large to fold their sleeves and to ensure that we beat the deadline of the time that was given. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, indeed, you clearly paid attention to that speech. I'm told it was so long. I was not able to watch the whole of it, but all Kenyans heard was curfew was lifted in a nutshell. That's all President Uhuru Kenyatta said yesterday. Now that you've mentioned about the local manufacturers, the tenders will be done. The first cohort of the CBC will join junior secondary in January 2013 with the learners now in grade 5. The tenders will be done by local contractors near each school to provide stimulus to the local economy. The payment for the construction of the classrooms will be remitted directly to the contractors in their sub-counties, so tapping within the local economies and all that. And also in response to the farmers' cries over the skyrocketing cost of animal and chicken feed, Uhuru ordered that within 7 days a framework to be developed to reduce cost. DP Ruto will absolutely benefit on this. We know he's he farms, he has a lot of chicken, that he's farming. At least that report in Parliament made us know that. But Samuel Tawish, what stood out for you yesterday in President Uhuru Kenyatta's speech?
Thank you, Miriam. In fact, Miriam, I wouldn't want to be repetitive because listening to Sharon, she's almost spoken everything that the president spoke in as far as the interventions on how the economy is going to be revitalized is concerned. Save that, let me just add more flesh. Also, just to remind Sharon that the person who was speaking yesterday in Warungu was not any other ordinary person, was the President of the Republic of Kenya. That's why you see when he was making that speech, he made it to the authority, and even when he was asking, he was directing the ministers, the respective ministers in charge of those respective dockets, really to make sure that such interventions are going to be, there's action towards such interventions. And that's why I'm not any skeptical. I do not doubt and that this is going to be achievable, whether you're talking about the 10 billion Kenya shillings for expansion of the infrastructure to accommodate the CBC, the new curriculum, whether you're talking about is it the 10 billion or 8 billion for the Kazi Mtaani, whether you're talking about the 1.5 billion for coffee farmers, as well as the 1.5 billion for sugarcane farmers. I mean, I do not doubt this because this is the President of the Republic of Kenya, and he knows how the exchequer is. He knows how much he has in store and how much is going to be actually directed towards achieving this noble objective. But away from that, Miriam, I can quite tell you that I was very happy for listening to President Uhuru Kenyatta. You must have noticed that the President was very keen on touching some very critical areas that some of the people have been exploiting, most of the politicians. There are people who have been talking about no jobs. That's why you see the president is pumping 10 billion for Kazi Mtaani. There are people who are talking about the coffee farmers, the tea farmers, the sugarcane farmers. They have been exploiting that gap. When we know that they are the ones who have been of course, the problems that these farmers are actually going through. So the president has decided to pump in more money to help, of course, these very critical sectors of our economy. And he also spoke about how the prices of tea have gone up from 42% when of course he took up to about 100% in terms of the prices. He talked about the price of the coffee from 26 shillings per kg now to 100 shillings from the time President Uhuru Kenyatta took office. Isn't it something really for people of Kenya to smile, especially those who are doing coffee farming and also tea farming in this country? Talk of of course, the sugarcane farmers. These monies that have been put there, it's going to make sure that also the farmers who are owed by the sugarcane, by the millers, are going to be paid their monies in due time, Miriam. This is something that is commendable of President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration. He's talked widely about improving the infrastructure. He's talked about the health docket, the health sector, Miriam, that he wants more 50 level 3 hospitals to be built around the country, Miriam, because he understands that there are also some Kenyans who still struggle to get these essential services because of a lack of proximity of these facilities to the ordinary people. He's also talked, of course, you've talked about CRB. There are people who are crying out here, Miriam, They took loans, but they have not been able to pay them. They have been listed by CRBs. And therefore, if President Uhuru Kenyatta is going to ensure that the Ministry of Finance is going to talk to the stakeholders, and they are going to be given at least some money so that the Kenyan people can be cushioned between now and next time as they try to recover from, of course, to recover from these COVID-19 effects. I can tell you this is something that is very commendable of our president, and even as he winds up his term in office, Miriam, I can quite tell you that his legacy is indeed secured and is going to be prominent, not necessarily to mention the words of Deputy President William Ruto, but I think that is what President Uhuru Kenyatta is, and that is what he's doing for the people of Kenya. He wants to achieve more, especially in the bracket of his legacy. By the time he exits office, say September next year, all these things would have been realized, and I think this is very, very commendable of the president.
Okay, thank you so much. And there's something you brought to our attention. I think that is what stood out for me yesterday, and that is the health sector. And we know that the health sector is one of President Uhuru Kenyatta's key agendas in his Big Four agenda, universal healthcare. And we've seen how he's been intentional in transforming this sector. So yesterday, while his administration has been plagued by the COVID-19 pandemic in the last 2 years, the president said the crisis had also provided the government with opportunities. He said the change in the health sector is probably one of the most phenomenal testimonies of how the government transformed COVID-19 obstacles into opportunities that expanded hospitals. And the government has put up 15 level 2 and 3 hospitals in the informal settlements through the Nairobi Metropolitan Services, while other 15 are under construction. One of the unintended benefits of the pandemic is that we have increased our ICU capacity by an impressive 502% from 108 to 651 beds. President Kenyatta said the total hospital bed capacity has increased by 47% from 56,069 in 2013 to 82,291. The oxygen generation capacity in public health facility increased from 3 million liters per day in March last year to 32 million liters per day today as we speak. That is quite an achievement in the health sector, and I know COVID, the pandemic, threw us into this quagmire, and at first we really didn't know what to do because we know we were acutely incapacitated, but the government of Kenya, from what we see President Uhuru Kenyatta say yesterday, was up to the challenge. Sharon.
Thank you very much. And indeed, it's quite a phenomenal move, to actually get to a point where we can actually articulate major strides that the president has actually tried to try to even seal as far as universal healthcare is concerned. And what I can see is a very committed president who is, really wants to make sure that the health of every individual is quite sustained and well maintained by, ensuring that he's able to deliver good health facilities, and not just good health, but quite equipped and supplied with medicines. And actually, when you look at the hospitals that is actually been, launching their state-of-art hospitals, not just, just any kind of hospitals. And actually, when you look at the locations, they are the locations that you least expect, so that this means that, people are able to, even in slums, you're able to reach, able to reach a health facility at you don't have to travel miles and miles, and when I look at what he actually launched in Kenyatta, the first imaging center in actually the region, if I can say, and this is actually going to go quite a long way to even ease burden to people who had to travel all the way to India and other countries, and you find that as long as you're able to access these health facilities locally, this then is going to go a long way. And putting that health nation is a wealth nation. If you're not healthy, then people are not going to be productive, and we're going to find ourselves in a shambolic situation. So the fact that he's able to really pay keen attention to the healthcare facility, this in itself speaks volume. And I think, and I have no doubt that we are headed in the right direction. We are going to be very productive now that we are very healthy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Tawish, we seem to have done very well under the pressure of COVID-19 in our health sector, even our counties right now. And so this was a great opportunity for a country for us to grow, despite the challenges that has come with COVID-19. I mean, did we have to wait for the COVID-19 to let us know that our health sector, the underbelly that was exposed and the critical conditions our health sectors were? Nevertheless, it's a good thing, right?
Miriam, I think the COVID-19 pandemic and the challenges that it has brought forth really has given us an opportunity to learn in terms of the gaps and lapses that we have had in the health sector. And I think it's only a foolish person who doesn't learn. And I think from listening to President Uhuru Kenyatta, as a government and as a people of Kenya, we must have learned in terms of the challenges that we have experienced, that one, we need to expand our infrastructure in terms of the health facilities. We also need to make sure that we have enough drugs in our hospital. And you can see the president is even moving, going ahead to ensure that we are going to have of course, a vaccine manufacturing plant being actually built in the country, so that we can be able to easily access this, and if it is possible, at a very convenient and a very convenient price. Miriam, this is something that is very good coming from President Uhuru Kenyatta, because again, we need to move away from relying on donations from outside. Today, as we speak, if it were not for the donations we are receiving from other countries in the world, where would we be as a country as we speak today? So we have to wait. We have to continually wait. We have to be at the mercy of these international, these Western power countries to bring for us these, of course, vaccines and other donations. So I think continually what the president is trying to tell the country and the world is that we need to move away from over-reliance from world donations, that we need to see how we can be able to do this for ourselves. And I think that is commendable of him. Another thing that I didn't quite speak, Miriam, which I think is also very essential, is the fact that the president spoke about, of course, pumping money into making sure that we are going to have subsidies in terms of fertilizer and other farm inputs, because again, that cuts across all farmers in the country. We've had a challenge in terms of the cost, the cost of inputs, farm inputs. You talk about fertilizer today. A 50 kg bag of fertilizer is almost 4,000 Kenya shillings. So you can imagine a person who, for example, is planting 10 acres of maize. Miriam, how many bags will you need? How much will you need really to be able to produce? Because today, as we speak, you cannot quite go and do this farming without having these other farm inputs, fertilizers, the boosters, and other, of course, the chemicals that farmers are using. So I think this is also very, very good that our farmers can now laugh that maybe this is going to go down. And because the president spoke so much in terms of course, also the money that was being directed to the livestock farmers. You can imagine that in the past, people have been struggling. They take their animals to the Kenya Meat Commission, but the problem is there's delayed payment. But the president now has streamlined, having new faces in those places, and now we have the farmers are being paid in a record 72 hours from the time their animals are being delivered to that particular institution. So Miriam, I think the president has achieved a lot, and I think this is more of trying to secure his legacy, and it's very commendable.
Okay, and just to add on what, before you come in, just to add on what Tawish you just said there, he also defended his decision to place the management of the Kenya Meat Commission, that is KMC, to the Kenya Defence Forces in 6 months. The military had pulled KMC out of a mountain of debt and increased the head of cattle it slaughtered a day from 8 to 185. So quite some progress there. Go ahead, Sharon.
Thank you. And I definitely agree. You know, the president is quite committed and very committed to ensuring that we have a streamlined, efficient delivery of all-round services when it comes to the people of Kenya. But then I have a problem with the county. When you go to the grassroots county, and this is a call to county leaders, I feel like they are working hand to ensure that they sabotage the president in one way or another, because you might find that we have, very efficient services. But I think a while ago I was seeing the county of Kitui was, they had been called out for not being able to, pay the health workers in time. And some days ago, I also saw, I think in Embu County, that the nurses, the personnel were striking because of poor working conditions. So I think this also should be a call out to the county leaders, especially county governments in the grassroots, so that they have to keep up the same momentum in the path that the president, so that they don't sabotage him.
Okay, all right. We've been seeing the wrangles between the national government, indeed, and the county governments. And I think the last time you were here, Tabish, remember we were talking about some, was it a report of the food situation in the country? And apparently we've been wasting so much food. A lot of food has been going to wastage. While one part of the of the country, is experiencing drought and famine. The other one is just wasting a lot of food. And so when you speak about counties sabotaging what the national government, I think, sometimes the counties, not sometimes, a lot of times, they really drop the ball because there are things that are supposed to be taken care of by the county governments. And in instances where they can't, then that is when they collaborate with the national government and see how do we address the issue of food storage in the counties, how do we address the issue of transportation and things like that to minimize on the losses there that is being experienced in the food sector. Because if you give the farmers the subsidies, the fertilizers and all these things to enable them get a maximum production, and then at the end of the day they don't have facilities to store this food, and also you do have cartels who also import others from outside the country. So I think for this to fully, be beneficial to the Kenyan farmers and to the Kenyans, indeed, then there has to be there has to be a solution that is broad-based. Ama Tawish, what do you think?
I fully agree with you, Miriam, because when government decides to give subsidies to farmers, I think this one is to encourage more farmers to come on board, to make sure that we are going to have more farmers really do this production. But again, it is also not enough, Miriam, just like you have said, that they're going to produce so much, yet we do not have, of course, interventions in terms of how the storage is going to be. Or even we are not planning on how they are going to market this produce. So I think generally this has been a very big problem. Some of these farmers have been, they have all along been hoarding this food or this produce because they wait until the market is, the prices or the market is fair to them. That is why when they want to sell it. That is why you see we've always had the prices of this produce as well, Miriam. I can tell you for sure that there will be no part of this country that will be complaining of hunger, because there's some parts of this country, more so when you talk of Western, you talk of parts of Nyanza, you talk of Rift Valley, which is the food basket in this country today. These farmers produce enough that is even enough for the home consumption, and that can even be exported outside the country. But because we have not been encouraging farmers, we've made the cost of farm inputs to be very, very expensive to a point that most of them have been shying away from engaging in these farm activities. And also when they do it, there is nowhere they can store this farm produce, or even getting the market becomes also a problem. And when they get the market, the prices are too low, to a point they cannot even be able to recover or compensate what they have used in terms of the input they have had on this on producing this farm produce. So in itself, Miriam, I think we need to have a broad-based kind of interventions, from giving them these subsidies, from making sure that we have a proper mechanism on how they are going to store them, and also making sure that we are going to secure a profitable and stable market for this produce. In itself, we'll be encouraging more farmers really to do these farming activities, and our country will have enough for its consumption and even for export. I submit, Miriam.
Okay. And the last thing that also I think touches on Kenyans, especially the young people, and I think you've talked about it, but let's see what the president said about it. Now, the third phase of the Kazi Mtaani, a program geared at integrating jobless Kenyans in urban hygiene and sanitation work across informal settlements in the country, will get an additional 10 billion Kenya shillings. The program, covering over 200,000 youths, will be rolled out to all counties, with priority given to densely populated areas in a country where 75% of the population is under 35. Kenya continues to grapple with high rates of unemployment. The Kazi Mtaani program offers sustenance income to jobless youths. But is it really sustenance? For now, yes, I know, because a lot of young people really were affected by COVID-19. But this cannot be a long-term solution to the issue of unemployment in this country. Is there a way that we can find a way to incorporate that? And I think I've asked this question before, to make it sustainable, because this is not sustainable in the long term, Sharon Gitonga?
Thank you very much. And indeed, it is a good move and a welcome move, but especially now in the wake of COVID-19, where so many youths not just youth, so many people were left, unemployed. And when we are living in times that the cost of living has really gone high. So this is quite a temporal solution to help them at least be able to put food on their table. But then when you look at in the long run, it's it's just a temporal solution now. When I'm looking at in the long run, if we can have like activities that can include the youth, or even empowering the youth, maybe in business, or rather to ensure that it's a long-term solution, not just giving them the kazi mtaani. It's a good move, being that we're in the wake of COVID-19, but then how is it going to sustain them 2 or 3 years at a time? If we can actually have more forums that can empower them, especially when it comes to business. And I think what the former Prime Minister was talking about, the 6,000 actually would actually go a long way if someone is very keen on investing because these are people who are extremely poor. For them, even 1,000 bob will actually go a long way to even start a kibanda and be a mama mboga. But I'm not trying to reiterate on the bottom-up approach. I'm just trying to look at the long run, a long-term solution for these. I think something that needs to really be looked into.
Mm-hmm. Hata kuna baba mboga, kwani ni mama mboga peke yake? I mean,
women.
Tawish, I know, I get it. I'm just joking. I'm just kidding. Tawish, as much as this is a good idea, but in the long run, it's not sustainable. So after President Uhuru Kenyatta leaves office, these youths have been used to getting this employment, and this money is up to September next year. And then what happens to them?
Miriam, I think what the president is basically doing is to see into it how he can have maybe what we refer as short-term interventions to this challenge that we are having in terms of unemployment. It may appear to be short-term, yes, but it's going to go a long way in cushioning and helping these young people who do not have jobs, at least to get to put food on the table rather, and be able to take care of their families, at least for now, Miriam, because we understand the kind of damage that the COVID-19 pandemic has brought. There are people who have lost their jobs. In fact, even those who are having jobs initially, a considerable number of people have really lost their jobs because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And there are also those new or fresh graduates, people who have gone to school, yes, but they have no jobs as we speak. So the challenge of creating more job opportunities, I don't think really lies with government alone. It does lie with the private sector as well. We need to engage all other stakeholders. How do we expand our economy to make sure that all these interventions are going to be sustainable in the long run, Miriam? When you talk about the president making sure that we have a dam, for example, in Gishugu, that is Thiba Dam, this dam is going to go a long way in helping farmers, for example, irrigate. It's going to tap more farmers to come into this bracket because today, if you can have more people go and engage in agriculture because they have water, they can easily do irrigation. The farm inputs have also been addressed in terms of subsidies. This in itself, Miriam, I think it is quite encouraging that people do not just need to necessarily rely on white-collar jobs, that you can as well engage on agriculture as a very serious venture and as a very serious source of livelihood, other than just waiting for government to create job opportunities. But I think when you listen to the president, he was touching on all these areas to make sure that we are opening up job opportunities. For example, Miriam, if we are going to build 50 level 3 hospitals across the country, don't you think we will need, first of all, we will need people who are going to do the construction of these facilities. Second, we'll need the personnel who will be running these institutions or these facilities. In itself, that is job creation, Miriam. If you talk about, for example, the construction of the classrooms, the 10 billion Kenya shillings that has been pumped into expanding the infrastructure to accommodate the new students that will be joining secondary, Miriam. And the president has directed that we need to get local contractors from those local areas, and monies are going to be given directly to those contractors. In itself, it's going to improve the economy of these regions. More teachers as well are going to be brought on board. More people are going to have more money in their pockets. I think doing that bit by bit, Miriam, in the long run, would have seen maybe more opportunities being created. You know, people wait to hear the president announce there and say, we want a million there are million vacancies for young people to get maybe into a certain office. I don't think that is how government works. When the government opens up these companies, we have not highlighted the question of the vaccine manufacturing plant, Miriam. In itself, is it not going to create job opportunities? I mean, these are the things that President Uhuru Kenyatta is doing in terms of revitalizing these industries, and in itself is going to create and open up for job opportunities for our young people, more so those who are not employed and they have actually graduated from school. I submit.
All right, thank you.
Miriam, just a quick one to allude to what Tawish has said, and I think he's really focusing on the educated people. But there's also a question of what are the dropouts going to do? And I think there's something that has really not been tapped into when it comes to exploiting talents, especially with the youth. When you look at maybe in sports, music, because I believe this would actually go a long way in ensuring that they're actively engaged, and to see them are not, joining or being vulnerable to negative influence. So I think apart from, when you see like in when he talks about construction, you find or the teachers being absorbed, these are educated personnel, but also let's also try and look at the people who have dropped out in school for one reason or another.
Okay. Thank you so much. So as we conclude on energy cost, the president ordered the Minister of Petroleum and Mining jointly with the National Treasury to develop a framework for stabilizing of petroleum prices before the end of the year. This will cushion Kenyans against the turbulence caused by the volatility in fuel prices, he said. Additionally, the Minister of Energy shall secure the full implementation of the report of the Presidential Task Force on Review of Power Purchase Agreements that establishes a pathway for the reduction of electricity prices by 30% by December 24th. I therefore look forward to Kenyans being relieved of the burden of high tariffs by Christmas Day. So I wish what the President is saying on Christmas Day, starting Christmas Day, you can just sleep with your power on in all the rooms in your houses and you don't have to worry.
I think when you listen to the president yesterday, he was basically saying he's giving people an early Christmas or early celebration because, Miriam, the cost of energy has been very high, and this has not gone down well with the ordinary people, because when the cost of energy goes up, say for example the fuel prices, almost everything in terms of prices goes up, Miriam. You go to a matatu, they have hiked prices. You go to buy bread, they have hiked prices. You go to buy unga, they have hiked prices, because they're using this energy, they're using this fuel really to produce this bread. So this is a very critical area that the president really needed to have addressed. And I'm very happy that he came out and addressed it, saying that the cost of energy is going to come down drastically. So is the cost of fuel. Because when he does this, life is not going to be as hard as it is. Other areas of other sectors are also going to see how they're going to harmonize in terms of the cost of living, Miriam. Because when the cost of fuel goes up, the cost of energy goes up, it becomes very unbearable to the ordinary Mwananchi. And I think this is very laudable of the president. It's one of those aspects I didn't mention when we are talking about what the president spoke yesterday during the Mashujaa Day celebrations. And I think the reason why the president is doing all this, one, he knows too well that this is the last of course, Mashujaa Day in terms of being the president. And that is why he came out outline almost all of the, of course, the pledges he made to the people of Kenya, what he has been able to achieve, and some of the things that he intends to achieve between now and the time he leaves office next year. And the areas that people have really been crying about, including the cost of living, the cost of fuel and cost of energy, the president saw it fit that maybe he had to address it. And I think this went down very well with all Kenyans, almost in every part of the country. I submit, Miriam.
Okay. Sharon, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, definitely. For me, it's a good movement. It's something to start celebrating as soon as now, because you realize how much electricity has, cost us. And by the virtue of, having energy increasing, definitely even the cost of the basic goods definitely increased. And this in turn, raising a very high cost of living to the people that are already, depressed with heavy taxes and everything. So this is a good move, considering that it is going to lower everything. When you talk about even something as little as Kiberiti has actually gone high, and the cost of gas. I mean, so for me, it's a good move and quite commendable. So I am looking forward to, December, which is, I think, some months, less than maybe 2 months away.
Okay, thank you so much. And of course, yesterday, about 220 Kenyans were feted and were celebrated as Mashujaa Day heroes, among them athletes and other Kenyans who are changing the world and the communities one day, one person at a time. So they were feted 220 Kenyans there. So thank you so much, Sharon Gitonga. Thank you, Samuel Tawish. We shall come back here at 11 a.m. and continue with this conversation even as we delve into President Uhuru Kenyatta's legacy. And yesterday he was able to highlight some of the things that he has achieved, and we might get into some of that and also some of the things that perhaps he was not able to talk about. I know Kenyans yesterday had curfew has been lifted. Me, what I heard was not an inch less. President Uhuru Kenyatta reiterated his position even after that International Court of Justice decision last week regarding to Kenya-Somalia maritime row. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Miriam Mugoto. This has been Good Morning Africa. We'll be back here at 11 a.m. with more conversation. Bye-bye for now and good morning.